Imagine a space so vast, it breathes. It is not merely a collection of trees, but a living engine fueling our planet's atmosphere. The Amazon basin covers over 6 million square kilometers, a territory so immense it defies spatial understanding. To stand at its edge is to behold a green ocean that dictates the weather above it. It is an ecosystem of staggering complexity, a vast tapestry of life where every square inch is contested by a million different organisms. Here, humidity is a physical weight, a thick curtain separating the known world from a realm that remains stubbornly primitive. This is a landscape where distance is measured in the endurance required to survive it. It is a place of absolute scale, where silence is never truly silent, but a symphony of life so dense that sounds merge into a humming vibration that resonates in your marrow. Moving away from the sun-drenched fringes, you encounter the green wall. This threshold is where light dies. High above, the emerald canopy filters sunlight like stained glass. But as you descend toward the floor, the world transforms. The air thickens with the scent of wet earth and decaying matter. At the bottom, you stand in a permanent twilight, a cathedral of shadows where only 2% of sunlight touches the ground. This is the environment that forged the myths of our ancestors, a place where the line between the physical and the spiritual begins to blur in the damp heat. In this pitch-black basement, your eyes struggle to adjust, but you feel it, the sensation of being watched. Thousands of unseen eyes track your movement. You are never the observer, you are always the observed. We live under the illusion that the world is fully mapped. We have satellites that read license plates and DNA sequencing for every blade of grass. Yet the Amazon remains the great exception, a blind spot in our digital map. We think of the Earth as a solved puzzle, yet this green heart continues to beat with a rhythm that we are only just beginning to hear. How can something so vital remain a secret? The answer lies in the forest's defensive architecture. Underneath that impenetrable canopy are rivers that have never been named, valleys without human footprints for millennia, and biological anomalies that defy evolution. Our maps are just sketches, and the reality of the Amazon is far deeper than any screen can display. When science attempts to pierce this veil, it meets a wall of failure. Technology goes to die here. GPS signals drop, swallowed by dense vegetation. Drones get lost in humidity that shorts their circuits, or are swat down by sudden storms. The ground is a moving target. Mud and shifting riverbeds make markers impossible. The forest rejects intrusion with physical force. It is as if the Amazon possesses an immune system, neutralizing anything that doesn't belong. Scientists revert to old methods because the digital world cannot survive here. Despite challenges, technology occasionally glimpses the impossible. In 2023, a satellite over the Mato Grosso plateau captured a thermal signature that defies explanation. It wasn't a fire or a geological feature. It was a massive heat source moving through the undergrowth, something larger than any known terrestrial animal. Data suggested a shape that shouldn't exist, moving with rhythmic grace through jungle so dense that even small mammals struggle to pass. It was a phantom, a reminder that something massive is breathing beneath the leaves. This is the reality as we venture deeper. The tone is shifting. This is no longer a nature documentary. It is a descent into a place where the rules of the outside world no longer apply. The jungle doesn't just hide things, it consumes them. It eats screams, buries ruins under vines, and erases your path as you walk. We are dealing with an entity that has outlived empires. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The journey into the unknown is beginning, and the forest is always waiting. We are looking for the truth behind the shadows. In the deep heart of the Amazon, the unknown is not a concept. It is a physical force that challenges everything we believe about our modern world today. In 1925, the world watched as Colonel Percy Fawcett, a man whose exploits inspired legends and fueled the imagination of an entire generation, marched into the Mato Grosso with a singular, burning conviction. He wasn't looking for El Dorado in the traditional sense of a city paved with gold. He was seeking a sophisticated, ancient civilization he called City Z. Fawcett was no amateur dreamer. He was a decorated geographer and a world-class explorer who had spent years mapping the rugged boundaries of South American nations. Yet, the Amazon jungle exerted a psychological pull on him that logic could not contain. He entered the Green Wall, accompanied only by his son Jack and his son's friend Raleigh Rimmel, carrying a map composed of shadows and a heart full of obsession. They never returned. No bodies were found, no equipment was ever recovered, and no traces of their final camp ever surfaced, despite decades of search parties. The Amazon didn't just kill them, it seemed to erase them from the fabric of time itself. For nearly a century, his disappearance was chalked up to the madness of a man chasing ghosts in a green hell. But recent evidence suggests that Fawcett might have been right all along. He wasn't chasing a myth. He was chasing a lingering memory of a world that the forest had spent centuries trying to aggressively forget. Beneath the thick, tangled roots of the towering mahogany and the suffocating serpentine grip of the strangler figs lies a secret that challenges every foundational textbook ever written about the Americas. This is Terra Preta, the Amazonian dark earth. While tropical soil is typically nutrient-poor, leached of its minerals by constant rain and acidic runoff, these specific patches of land are hyper-fertile, rich in charcoal, bone, and pottery shards. It is man-made soil, a biological and chemical legacy left behind by a population that shouldn't have existed according to 20th century archaeology. This wasn't a sparse, wandering collection of hunter-gatherers. It was a massive, organized society that engineered the very ground they walked upon to sustain millions of lives. The scale of this ancient engineering is only now becoming visible through the LIDAR revolution. By firing millions of focused laser pulses from aircraft, scientists have effectively stripped away the dense, obscuring canopy to reveal the geometric skeleton of the Earth below. What they found was staggering and shifted our understanding of history overnight. Massive, perfectly symmetrical geoglyphs, vast causeways that stretch for miles, and circular plazas emerge from the digital data showing that the Amazon was once home to ancient cities that rivaled the scale and complexity of London or Paris during their own medieval eras. For centuries, mainstream science clung to the romanticized narrative that the Amazon was a pristine wilderness, a primeval landscape untouched by human hands until the intrusion of the modern era. We now know this was a convenient, Eurocentric lie. The jungle we see today is actually a massive abandoned garden on a continental scale. The specific distribution of fruit-bearing trees and the highly structured layout of the waterways suggest a landscape that was once meticulously managed, cultivated, and pruned. When the Spanish explorer Francisco de Orellana first navigated the length of the river in the 1540s, he reported seeing thousands of people, fortified towns, and fierce warrior women who fought with a ferocity that earned the river its legendary name. His detailed chronicles were dismissed for centuries as the fever dreams of a starving, desperate man. Yet the LIDAR maps are now vindicating his accounts. He wasn't lying about the golden cities or the sprawling populations. He was witnessing the final glorious sunset of a civilization before European diseases and the relentless, suffocating hunger of the forest moved in to claim the remains. The pristine jungle is actually a sprawling graveyard of an empire that built with wood and earth rather than stone, allowing the environment to swallow its history in a matter of mere generations. If these cities were as vast and interconnected as the data suggests, we are faced with a haunting and unsettling contradiction. Where did all the people go? We see the ruins of their homes and the persistent fertility of their fields, but the transition from a bustling urban landscape to a silent, green void happened with terrifying speed. In just a few hundred years, millions of people seemed to vanish into the humidity, leaving behind only the geometric shapes of their ambition etched into the dirt. But as we peer into the deepest recesses of the Mato Grosso, we have to wonder if the collapse was truly absolute. Did the survivors simply melt into the modern world, or did they retreat further into the shadows, into the red zones, where no outsider is allowed to step? The artifacts we find are silent, but the forest itself feels heavy with the weight of a presence that hasn't quite departed. The question is no longer whether they existed, but whether everyone truly left. As the investigator, I find myself standing on the edge of these ancient plazas, looking into the dark undergrowth and wondering if the descendants of those who built City Z are still watching us from the trees, guarding the secrets of a world that refused to be fully conquered. The silence here isn't empty, it's a waiting game, a pause before the next discovery reveals that we are not the first to call this place home. The ancient ones left a map in the dirt, and as we follow it, the trees seem to lean in closer, as if listening to our every heartbeat. As we push deeper into the emerald gloom, we move beyond the ruins of man and into a realm where time itself seems to have stalled. Here, the boundaries between the living and the extinct become blurred by the humidity and the shadows. To the indigenous peoples of the deep interior, the greatest terror is not a ghost, but a creature of flesh, bone, and a stench so foul it can paralyze a man before he even sees the source. They call it the Mapinguari. In the flickering firelight of jungle camps, the stories are always the same. A towering beast, standing over 7 feet tall on its hind legs, covered in matted reddish fur that is said to be impenetrable by arrows or bullets. It moves with a heavy, deliberate gait, and its arrival is heralded by a smell that witnesses describe as a nauseating mixture of rotting meat and stagnant swamp gas. To the modern biologist, this sounds like a chimera, a monster born of fever and isolation. Yet when you strip away the layers of folklore, a terrifyingly precise biological profile emerges that points toward a ghost from our distant past, the Megatherium. The Megatherium, or the giant ground sloth, was a titan of the Pleistocene epoch. Science tells us that these 3-ton behemoths vanished from the face of the earth approximately 10,000 years ago, victims of a changing climate or the spears of early human hunters. They are supposed to be nothing more than skeletal remains in museum halls, yet the descriptions provided by tribes who have had no contact with modern paleontology are disturbingly accurate. They describe the way the creature walks on the sides of its feet because of its massive curved claws, a specific anatomical detail that wasn't understood by scientists until they reconstructed the first complete fossils. They speak of its diet of palm hearts and its ability to snap thick saplings like toothpicks. Most chillingly, they mimic its cry. It is not the low growl of a jaguar or the rhythmic hoot of a howler monkey, but a piercing, metallic shriek that resonates through the canopy. If the Mapinguari is a myth, it is a myth with a suspiciously deep understanding of prehistoric anatomy. The accounts aren't limited to tribal legends. Throughout the 20th century and into the present day, gold miners and rubber tappers, men who spend their lives in the most remote, unmapped sectors of the Mato Grosso, have returned with eyes wide with a specific kind of trauma. They tell of encounters with monkeys the size of grizzly bears that walk upright through the undergrowth. One rubber tapper recounted a 1930s encounter where he fired his rifle at a large, reddish beast, only to watch the bullets flatten against its hide before the creature turned and disappeared with a roar that felt like a physical blow. These men are not seeking headlines. They are rugged pragmatists who know the forest better than any academic, yet they describe something that should not exist. This leads us to the concept of Lazarus species, animals declared extinct only to suddenly reappear. If the coelacanth could be found in the Indian Ocean, why should we assume the Amazon has surrendered all its many ancient residents? As the investigator, I have stood in the silence of these deep growth zones, where the air feels like breathing water. You realize that extinct is often just a synonym for unseen. The Amazon does not offer its residents for a census. It is a three-dimensional labyrinth of concealment. In the stillness, you hear a branch snap with the force of a falling pillar, a sound too heavy for any common animal. You feel a vibration in the ground that suggests a weight your mind refuses to categorize. It is here that the pattern interrupt occurs. We rely on satellites to map the surface, but those tools cannot see through the layers of organic history in the basin. If a creature as massive as the megatherium could find a pocket to endure, what other ghosts walk alongside it? The jungle doesn't just preserve life, it insulates it from time. The question isn't just about the sloth. It's about what else moved into the deep green to hide away forever. The deeper we journey into this verdant fortress, the more the Amazon reveals itself as a place of intentional exclusion, a realm where human willpower has carved out a sanctuary of absolute silence. Beyond the reach of satellite pings and the digital mesh of the modern world lie the red zones. These are territories so remote and sensitive that the Brazilian government has legally declared them off-limits, creating a cartographic void where the outside world is forbidden to step. This is the domain of the last uncontacted tribes, the final groups of human beings on Earth who have chosen to exist entirely outside the global conversation. We often frame the Amazon as an untamed wilderness, but for these people, it is a sovereign state, with borders defined by the density of the brush and the lethality of their aim. They have become known in modern lore as the Arrow People, a title earned through their singular, defiant posture toward our technological intrusion. When a low-flying research plane or a surveillance drone buzzes over the canopy, these guardians do not retreat into the shadows in fear. Instead, they move into the riverbanks and clearings, aiming bows made of blackened ironwood at the silver birds screaming through the sky. To a person who has never seen a wheel, never looked into a glass mirror, or never heard the hum of an internal combustion engine, the sight of a ton of metal-defying gravity must be an existential shock. It is a collision of two vastly different human realities that defies our understanding of history and the progression of time. These tribes view our machines not as technological wonders, but as sky-born demons or harbingers of a world that has only ever brought disease, displacement, and death. Their aggression is not an act of primitive violence. It is a calculated and necessary shield for their survival. Like the Sentinelese of the Indian Ocean, these groups have learned through a long, painful ancestral memory that contact with the so-called civilized world is almost always a terminal event. But as the investigator, I find myself grappling with a haunting moral dilemma that defines our age of total surveillance. In an era where every square inch of the planet is being indexed, mapped, and commodified by eyes in the sky, is our desperate need to document these people an act of preservation or a final act of colonial violence? By flying over their longhouses to count their numbers or verify their survival, are we inadvertently stripping away the very mystery that acts as their only true protection against the outside world? There are persistent whispers in the journals of early 20th century explorers, including the obsessed Percy Fawcett, of groups that defy the standard genetic expectations of the Amazonian basin. These accounts speak of the tall ones, tribes of uncharacteristic stature or lighter complexions that did not seem to match the surrounding populations, while modern anthropology remains deeply skeptical of these white Indian legends, often dismissing them as the delusions of fever-stricken men. The sheer diversity of the uncontacted world remains a profound enigma. Some independent researchers believe these may be the distant descendants of the builders of the LiDAR-revealed cities, groups that retreated into the deepest, most inaccessible red zones to preserve a high culture that was once the envy of the entire continent. These people are the guardians of a lost heritage, the living libraries of a botanical and historical knowledge that we are only just beginning to grasp through our lenses and sensors. They likely hold the secrets to plants that can heal the incurable and possess an intimate map of predators and spirits that science has yet to name or categorize. However, this ancient sanctuary is failing under the pressure of the modern century. The Arrow people are being squeezed into ever smaller pockets of the interior by the encroachment of modern monsters that the forest cannot easily consume. Narco-traffickers use the lawless canopy to hide clandestine airstrips, and illegal loggers move through the ancient mahogany trees like a slow-moving, mechanical fire. These hidden societies are now on the front lines of a silent war where their arrows are pitted against high-caliber rifles and the crushing weight of global greed. When their arrows fly at our planes, they aren't just protecting a single village. They are defending the last fragment of a human experience that remains truly, purely unknown. What secrets of the forest, medicines, history, or ancient predators do these people know that we have forgotten in our rush to automate the world? Perhaps they know why the great hush falls over the forest, or perhaps they have seen the Mapinguari not as a ghost, but as a living neighbor. The mystery of the Guardians is as deep as the forest itself, and the closer we get, the more we realize that some truths are protected by more than just distance. They are protected by a choice to remain in the shadows. What unfathomable secrets do these people guard? As we move further into the interior, the forest transitions from a biological mystery to a geological impossibility. Deep within the central Peruvian Amazon lies a stretch of water that defies every law of earth science we thought we understood. Mayantuyacu, the boiling river. The investigator knows that in most parts of the world, geothermal activity is tethered to the presence of volcanic fire. Yet here, the nearest active volcano is nearly 700 kilometers away. The water, reaching temperatures that hover just below the boiling point, is not merely warm. It is a lethal, surging force that kills anything unfortunate enough to fall into its current. You can see the tragic remains of small mammals and reptiles that slipped from the banks, their bodies cooked from the inside out in seconds as they struggled against the scalding flow. It is a steaming, serpentine scar through the greenery where the air itself tastes of wet earth and ancient minerals. Scientific theory suggests that this is a non-volcanic geothermal system, where water seeps deep into the Earth's crust, heats up via the geothermal gradient, and then surges back to the surface. For the local shamans, the explanation is far more personal and terrifying than a simple shift in tectonic plates. They believe that Mayantuyacu is birthed by the Yakumama, a giant serpent spirit whose massive, coiled body generates the heat that fuels the river's life-ending temperatures. To the indigenous mind, the river is a living entity, a breath of the forest's deeper soul. This brings us to one of the most enduring and chilling enigmas, the Sucurihu gigante. While modern biology recognizes the green anaconda as the world's heaviest snake, reaching 20 feet, the stories whispered in longhouses tell of something much larger. They speak of a predator that stretches 50 feet, a creature whose girth is like a drum, and whose tracks look like a tractor has been dragged through the mud. When you visualize the scale, the perspective shifts toward the primeval. A standard 15-foot snake is a formidable hunter, but a 50-foot apex predator is a remnant of a prehistoric age that should have vanished millennia ago. These creatures are said to dwell in the black water swamps, areas where the canopy is so thick that no light reaches the surface, creating an environment that is more liquid than land. The investigator has seen the journals of early explorers' accounts of skins that seem impossibly wide. Even today, satellite imagery occasionally catches a long, dark shape moving through the silt-heavy waters of the unmapped tributaries, a shadow that does not match any known log. The jungle doesn't just hide these entities, it nourishes them with a total lack of human interference. But the physical anomalies of the Amazon extend beyond the creatures that inhabit its mud. There is a specific lingering tension that settles over the Mato Grosso Plateau, a region where the very laws of physics seem to fray. Pilots flying over these unmapped sectors frequently report erratic behavior in their instruments. Compasses spin without reason, and GPS signals often drop out entirely, leaving the crew blind in a sea of green. This isn't just a technical glitch. It is a pattern of electromagnetic interference that suggests something buried beneath the plateau is actively rejecting the intrusion of modern signals. The air near the boiling river is heavy with steam, the sound of water a constant roar in a place where it should be cool. In these moments, the investigator realizes that the Amazon jungle is not a passive victim. It is a defensive organism, one that uses heat, shadows, and the very ground to keep its secrets locked away. The atmosphere is charged with an energy that hums through the soles of your boots, a vibration that hints at vast, subterranean chambers or rivers of fire running parallel to the roots of the trees. This land does not abide by the orderly maps of the outside world. It exists in a state of constant, fluid defiance. To walk here is to accept that your eyes might lie to you, but the heat of the water and the weight of the silence are the only truths that matter. We are merely observers of this unfolding mystery. The Amazon is never truly silent, yet there are moments when the symphony stops all at once. The investigator calls this the Great Hush. It is an abrupt, suffocating void that leaves your ears ringing. In the canopy, where the roar of howler monkeys and the screech of macaws create a deafening wall of noise, a sudden stillness can be more terrifying than any scream. Biologists suggest this could be the result of infrasound, low-frequency acoustic waves that exist below the threshold of human hearing but resonate deep within the human nervous system. In the wild, apex predators like tigers use these paralyzing frequencies to stun their prey with an invisible wave of primal fear. If the same biological mechanism is at work here, it implies a predator of such scale that its presence can mute the world's most vibrant ecosystem in a heartbeat. You feel it before you hear it, a deep vibration in your marrow that tells your lizard brain to flee, even when there is nowhere to hide from a sound that occupies the very air. Beyond these natural acoustic anomalies, there are recordings that defy biological classification. Researchers stationed in the unmapped corners of the Mato Grosso have captured what they call the hum. It is a metallic, rhythmic thrumming that sounds more like the pulse of a subterranean factory than a living forest. This sound persists for hours, unrelated to any known tectonic activity or human machinery. Some geologists believe it is the sound of the earth breathing through hidden hydrothermal vents, while others fear it is the resonance of something artificial buried beneath the silt of 10,000 years. The sound doesn't just pass through the air, it travels through the root systems and the dark water, a haunting reminder that the ground beneath our feet might not be as solid as our maps suggest. It is a heartbeat made of iron, pulsing beneath the green. This auditory strangeness is the precursor to the most chilling reality, the disappeared. Colonel Percy Fawcett was merely the most famous among thousands who have been swallowed by the gloom. Every year, modern explorers equipped with satellite phones and field scientists step into the shadows and cease to exist. They leave behind no tracks and no physical remains. Rescue missions find themselves walking in futile circles, their compasses rendered useless by magnetic anomalies, as if the forest is actively rearranging its geography to lead them away from a forbidden truth. It is as if the jungle possesses a specialized digestive system for human intrusion, absorbing outsiders so completely that not even a metal button is ever recovered. These are not merely cases of getting lost. They are instances of the forest reclaiming its territory, closing the curtain forever on those who dare to peek too far behind the veil. We are beginning to understand that the Amazon is not just a collection of trees, but a conscious, defensive organism. Through the wood wide web, a vast network of mycorrhizal fungi, the trees are constantly communicating, sharing nutrients. If a single tree is attacked, the entire grove begins to mount a biochemical defense. If the forest can communicate, can it also think? Could the Amazon be a sentient entity that views humanity as a viral pathogen? This would explain the failures of our technology and the oppressive weight of the great hush. The jungle isn't just hiding secrets, it is an active guardian of them. The closer you get to the heart of this consciousness, the more your senses begin to betray your reality. The light itself changes, filtered until it becomes a sickly green that distorts your perception of depth. The smell of ozone hangs heavy in the air, an electric scent that warns of a storm that never arrives. The trees don't just stand, they watch with unseen eyes. Every step taken deeper into the labyrinth feels like a trespass against an ancient and brooding intelligence that knows no mercy for the modern intruder. The geography seems to shift, as if the landscape itself is a living creature that refuses to be mapped. We are navigating the interior of a mind that has existed for 50 million years. And right now, that mind is deciding whether to let us out. As the investigator stands within the emerald twilight and stifling humidity of the Mato Grosso plateau, the disparate threads of this journey finally begin to weave into a singular, haunting tapestry. We started this exploration seeking answers to isolated riddles, the foul-smelling Mapinguari, the defensive isolation of the Arrow people, and the geological impossibility of the boiling river. Yet, as the great hush settles once more over the canopy, it becomes clear that these are not separate anomalies. They are the immune system of a singular, colossal organism. The Amazon does not merely contain these mysteries. It generates them to ensure its own survival. Every extinct creature that still breathes in the undergrowth and every tribe that fires arrows at the silver birds serves a specific purpose in the jungle's grand design: to maintain the sanctity of the unknown. To understand the Amazon is to realize that some things are not meant to be found. This realization brings us to the profound paradox of discovery. For the modern world, to find a mystery is to inevitably destroy it. The moment we place a GPS coordinate on an ancient city like the one Colonel Percy Fawcett once sought, we strip away its power. It ceases to be a legend and becomes a data point, a site to be excavated, catalogued, and eventually commodified. In our relentless drive to map every square inch of the planet, we are suffocating the very wonder that drives us to explore. To map the Amazon is to kill its magic. There is a reason the jungle rejects our drones and scrambles our satellites. It is fighting for its right to remain a secret. It understands that human knowledge is often followed by human destruction. By keeping its heart hidden behind the green wall, the forest protects its inhabitants from a world that would rather dissect them than respect them. There is an unsettling truth in our current technological state. Humanity knows more about the desolate surface of Mars than it does about the deep floor of the Amazon basin. We have sent rovers to traverse the red dust of another planet, mapping its craters with precision, yet we cannot see through the thick canopy of our own world. Beneath that layer of green lies a biological frontier, as alien and unexplored as any distant galaxy. While we gaze at the stars, looking for signs of life, we ignore the fact that the most complex and potentially dangerous life forms on Earth are thriving in a place where our technology simply fails. The Amazon remains the last great blind spot of our species, a defiant void that refuses to be digitized. This gap in our knowledge is not a failure of science, but a necessary limit on our collective human ego. This raises a vital question for the soul. Does humanity actually need the unknown? In an era where every question is answered by a search engine and every corner of the globe is visible from a smartphone, the existence of a secret is a psychological necessity. The mystery of the Amazon keeps our species humble. It serves as a reminder that we are not the absolute masters of this planet. There are still places where we are not welcome, where our tools are useless, and where we are once again the prey rather than the predator. This humility is the foundation of wonder. Without the possibility of the Mapinguari or the hidden cities of the LiDAR scans, the world becomes a smaller, colder place. We need the forest to be vast. We need the shadows to be deep. We need the feeling of being watched by eyes we cannot see, for it is in that tension that we truly feel alive. The Amazon is a mirror. It reflects our deepest fears of what we cannot control and our most profound wonder at what we do not understand. When we look into the green gloom, we see the echoes of our own evolution, the primal terror of the dark, and the ancestral drive to find what lies over the next ridge. The jungle takes our myths, like the Yakumama serpent spirit, and gives them a physical space to breathe. It takes our lost history and buries it in the terra preta, waiting for a time when we are wise enough to handle the truth. It is a living testament to the fact that the earth is far older and more clever than the civilization we have built upon its surface. As we return to our world of concrete, a final image lingers. A new satellite composite from late 2023 shows a distortion in a previously unmapped sector near the nameless tributary headwaters. It is a blur, a massive shadow that doesn't match the surrounding vegetation, moving slowly against the current of the trees. It is a reminder that the jungle is still growing, still hiding, and still watching. The investigator knows now that the search for the truth is not about uncovering every secret, but about learning to live with the beauty of the unanswered. The green veil remains intact. Some doors are meant to stay closed, and in the heart of the Amazon, the door is still locked.